This is the RC4WD
Gelande II.
Now in just a few months this thing will be 10 years old. This one here with this smart black and red color scheme is the 2015 anniversary edition. And in 2015 they released this guy and the Heritage edition, which is the pale green pickup, or little short wheelbase ute. Yes, it is the short wheelbase machine, and this has been around for quite some time. And it's the first RC4WD vehicle I have that has links and coilovers rather than leaf suspension. And leaf suspension is something that is a big draw. Oh, I tell a lie. I've actually had the Beast 2, which is the 6-wheel drive with links and coilovers, but we won't count that thing. If you're into crawling, chances are you're familiar with this model. Here's a quick rundown if you're not. It has an opening hood with a magnet that holds it shut. I might show you some photos as I do this so that you can see what we're talking about. It's got opening doors, a full dash inside, driver not included, and you've even got folding seats in the rear that I've stuck down. And on the rear you also have a little handle here, and that opens as well. And don't mind my sneaky BRX01 boxes in the back there. There's also a jerry can hiding, you might be able to see. I'm always careful with styrene. It's easy to break stuff if you're not careful. Now the magnets are held in nicely in all these retaining areas, which is great. It comes with these stamped beadlock wheels. They're not too bad. They're a fairly lightweight, steely stamped wheel with a what looks like a 6mm hex built into it. And they're quite attractive. I like the square profile. There's a little bit of rounding to it. The foam's about right for it too. Of course, that's not what I'm running. Let me tell you about what else I'm not running, because there's a little bit of a story here. This is the standard current version of the, I think it's a 3-channel, yeah, 3-channel with a little switch here. Included radio system and waterproofed receiver, the XR series, which is nice. So these go together, but they're not in the car either. I've removed the RC4WD 4-channel receiver. These are actually waterproof, and the way they waterproof them is by covering the whole board in silicone. See how that's all opaque? That's covered. It's the same on the bottom as well. So this, I don't know that you want to submerge it, because any little gaps could mean water could get in under it. Ask me how I know. I've done this before. But that's a fine way to waterproof a receiver, and it should be quite reliable. Now I don't like the radios for these, so I'm using an FSA3, and I've just taken the cover off and I've applied what's called conformal coating. You might be able to see it there on the board. Really you just need to cover those 2 chips and the rest of it will be fine. Now you clean this with acetone, which I've already done. What I'm using is conformal coating. You can buy it, this is just a no-name cheapy thing, but conformal coating is what you're looking for. This has a 30 kilovolt rating, it's IP65 rated. You paint it on, leave it to dry, and then you've got a waterproof board. I'll put that back into the cover and into the vehicle. It also comes with the 4510 540 brushed motor, which is not in the model. There's the Outcry 3, which is kind of similar to your WP1060, although I think it's a 40 amp, not a 60 amp brushed ESC with lovely long wires, which you do need because the motor's up the front and the ESC can go in the back. But you'll notice it's not actually in the car. There's also the twister. I think it's a 7.4 volt, and I'm pretty sure it's a 16 kilo servo. Could be wrong on that. But anyway, it's their waterproof servo for steering, which is adequate for these little wheels. It's kind of slow, but it's quite okay. But it's not in the car either. Of course, you get the lovely, it's the latest updated plastic universal drive shafts. They're a 3-piece. I personally like when they do a 2-piece design. Hang on, get that lined up. So that if that's back further, you've got just more shaft, because here you've got 2 half bits, which ends up giving you a fairly wonky thing. Quite adequate for the standard model with the standard wheels, but you'll notice that they're not installed. And of course you have the Yoda axles, or they're the Yoda 2s, I'm pretty sure. They're a pretty axle. Now all of this stuff incidentally doesn't come with thread lock installed, even the wheels. So when you get one of these models, doesn't matter what it is from RC4 Drive, if it's ready to run, they don't assemble with thread lock. So it's not really ready to run. You need to pull it apart and add thread lock, or screws will back out, they just will. Now this is an undamaged rear axle, but it's not installed in the car. It was this time yesterday. This is the front axle. Now you may not be able to see on camera here, and I'm sorry, but I'm using a wide angle so you get everything here. That means we missed some details. This is turning, and that's turning, but that ain't. I made a post, if you follow me on Instagram, it's at RC Trail and Tech. I made a post yesterday where I drove this thing in its current state for the first time on problem 1. It made it to the very beginning rock of problem 1. It didn't even get up it before there was a snap. Well, this is possibly my scale 1 rig for the upcoming comp, but true to its nickname, on its very first test run it just became an RC 3-wheel drive. The axle has broken very first run. Kind of disappointing after all the work that went into this thing. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Anyway, I need to think about what axles to run because I can't run this monkey metal. It's no good. There's a dog bone on the axles and the cup. It's like a 2-piece cup that sits on the outdrives from the diff here. And they're held on by a tiny little bit of RC 4-wheel drive monkey metal on both sides. It's like a tiny little bit, and they break easily. I kind of hoped they'd last, but there's minimal scratching under here because I did a little bit of tuning up there when I still had these wheels on, but it just didn't last. So I'm not using that either. So we've got a bunch of gear here that's included with the ready to run machine that I'm not running. So what am I running? Here's why there's a big pile of stuff here, and here's why I'm going to show you what I'm running. This roof rack is metal. This is a full-size spare, and there's a bunch of gear on top. These are heavier wheels, and you may notice a rather downright impressive steering angle. What axles could possibly be powering this, and why? Well, these are the Boom Racing BRX 70 axles, and unlike the pot metal parts in the RC 4-wheel drive stuff, which is now actually an RC 3-wheel drive, these are all steel cut, and this does actually feature a bunch of stuff. Now I did this just last night because I was a little bit down having been preparing this thing. We're going to come back to what I've got in here. Let me tell you what I'm preparing it for. There's a playlist on my channel called The Road to Nationals, and this video is part of that playlist. I'm planning on taking this rig to the Nationals at the end of March next year up in Boat Harbour, New South Wales. Where we're going to be driving at Boat Harbour is actually a rocky outcropping, so it's kind of like the opposite of a boat harbour, but that's where we're driving. Now what I have here is the handicap points form for Class 1. Now we're running with the WRCCA rules, the World RC Crawling Association rule set, which is different to the SORCA rules that is commonly used in the United States. The SORCA rules are a fun-focused set, and these are slightly more serious business. You basically need a benchmark whereby everyone can run. Now what you get with the RCCA rule set is a handicap points list. I actually made a list of all the cars that I could possibly run at Nationals in Class 1, which is also known as Scale 1. And I looked at a bunch of different cars. I looked at the SCA1E from Charisma, of course my old Class 1 rig, which is a TRX4 with the Bronco lid attached. I'll link to all the videos for these vehicles I'm mentioning in the description because I've covered all of these on the channel. Now aside from the handicaps list, there's a bunch of requirements. The spirit of the rules is basically that you have a truck that you could legally drive on the road that's converted to a hardcore trails rig for the weekend, but it still needs to resemble, within the spirit of the rules, a road-going vehicle. Now, your most tame tyres that you could see are still actually fairly aggressive if you look at these for the road, whereas for crawling, they're actually not particularly aggressive at all. The most modest rigs, which is what I built here, would actually be a really spectacularly capable off-road machine in 1-to-1 scale, But what I'm building here is actually not going to be as an aggressive machine as some of the championship rigs that you see. I'm not necessarily going for a placing in Class 1, I am going for fun. I mean, look how pretty this thing is. The guys that build the trucks that win Scale 1 will generally be using the LC70 so that you get as little mass up as possible, and they chop the back of it and bring the bed right in so it's nice and short, and they put extra rubber flares or plastic flares out so they get nice wide stance with their axles and full coverage, because you get scale points. You must have 50% coverage, but you can get 100% coverage and get extra points, right? And they don't put all this junk on top. So although this looks great, this is a metal cage I've put over the top, partly to protect this beautiful body, but it all adds up. Now this is not overly heavy, it looks like it would be, but it's not that heavy. But if I wanted to have an aggressively competitive truck, I'd actually, even if I used what I had here, I could use the BRX01 LC70 body I built, or I could just use my Trailfinder 3, which is really lightweight. I've chosen to go with this because I like the short wheelbase. I could cut down the tray on the other thing. This is what I've gone with. We're not going to do a review of this thing today because, again, the Gelande II is 10 years old now, and chances are you can find a review if you want one. But I will take you through what I've done to turn this thing into a Class 1 machine. Now the D90 newer variants are all on coils, and the very first thing on this list here is either leaf springs, which is not appropriate, or suspension matches OEM configuration. Now it didn't before, even though you'll find coilovers in the front. The D90 doesn't have coilovers in the rear. Well, there are coilovers out there, but they often have a separate shock absorber that's leaning forward. Now last night when I put these axles on, I installed that as well. So I'm trying to get to what you'll find in real life. Tentatively, I'd like to say I actually have this, the -4. Now moving on to the next section, I've got a hard body here. What these points do is for every course that you run in the comp, you subtract the points from the end score. So it's in your interest to have as many of these achieved as you can. The only downside is the more of these that you add, particularly when you start looking at metal racks, is that there's weight up top and you are compromising performance. I've chosen to put a functional spare at the top here. All of this adds weight, so you're detracting from your capability, but the spirit of it is to have something that looks gorgeous. So with that in mind, I've got a complete set of inner fender wells. Now these are the RC4WD Drive Lexan ones. I've painted and installed them. I've got tape over it here because they absorb the sound. It really added this kind of noise to it, and I've just gotten rid of that by putting fabric tape down, so it's actually nice. It dims that. So we've got that running. That's a complete inner set of fender wells. Now, roof rack must be metal and at least 1/3 of the vehicle's wheelbase. Well, that's the rack, although the whole thing's actually that long. Even that would be enough. So we've got our roof rack. 100% tire coverage. I nearly had it with these and with these. But given these axles are made of a very hard kind of cheese from RC4WD Drive, and given that these were good but not great, I've instead fitted Proline trenches, which are currently what I really like, and they've got a very hard foam. So I tried a few 2-stages, but I ended up, given how heavy this thing is, I ended up going with these hard foams. If I don't go with these, I'm going to be going with a hard inner and a soft outer 2-stage, I think. We're not going to get 100% tire coverage, but that's okay. Separate transfer case, yes, you get that out of the box, so that's in the next section. Functional lights. Now, stickers are acceptable. To get functional lights though, not just stickers, you need to have lights to have this class. Stickers are okay, but to get that extra one, they're going to need to be functional. I haven't installed the LEDs yet, but I'm going to. So we'll tentatively put that there with a little star, because I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. Functional sound kit. Well, I actually do have one of those. This is a very lightweight little fella, and I've got a switch because they get annoying. This is from the Gelande II series of models. It's loud enough that it actually works in this, and it is functional. And it's split off a harness here on the throttle. So you can turn that on, and it is actually something that runs. So I get the point for that. Spare tire, outer diameter must be within 5 mil plus minus of the others. Well, this is the same, it's the same size as these. and it is functional. It's got foams in it, it's good to go. It's actually from my old Class 1 rig. So we get that, which is great. Opening doors, yes, we looked at that already. Hooray. Opening bonnet or hood, absolutely, we've got that. Now, this broke when I first opened it, and it's only attached by one hinge. I've got a set of metal things coming from RC4 Drive, but they make you buy the entire set of metal bits for this body, so it was like $31 US, just so I can replace that one hinge piece with another thing made out of the same pot metal. Still, scale points. That's what it is actually opening, so there's that. 3D interior, yes, we've got that. Working winch, I will actually install that. I'll put a star next to it because it's not done yet. I've got the winch bar and a winch coming. We will install that, so I'll put a star next to that. Human figure, yes, we've got him installed. So far we've got -4 for that section. Body, we've got -4 for that section. Drivetrain, we've got the -1. I'm just going to highlight where these are so I don't get lost later. Large scale items, maximum of 8 points, and we've got all 8 for that, which is great. Pending installation. Now, small scale items, they let you install stuff. 3 to 7 items gives you 1 point from the list, and 8 or more gives you 2 points with a maximum of 2. Mirrors, yes, I'll just tick them. Wipers, yes. Antennas, I got one, but I didn't install it because I don't like what happens when they roll. They tend to snap. License plate, front and rear. I've got one on the rear. I've got that up my sleeve. I can do it on the front if I want, but at the moment, no, I'm not doing it. Disc brakes on the wheels, nope. Mud flaps, nope. Sound ladders, yes, they're on. Now, to get the 2 points you need 8, I'm going to go for 9 so that if I have a problem, I've still got one up my sleeve. I like to have a little bit of redundancy there. So, max tracks, yes. Fuel tank, no. Jerry can, yes, that's currently inside. You can see it through the window. I could mount it outside, but I was trying to keep things tidy. So we get our point for the jerry can. Scale hubs on wheels, nope. Trail tools, high lift jack, yes. Shovel, that's good enough. So you just need to have one of those things. First aid kit, fire extinguisher, swag, esky. Swag on top, good enough. Toe strap, no. D-rings, no. Tow bar, yes. Fitted aftermarket, ready to go. And it's a stumpy one, which is good for adaptability. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do need some more. I may have to add an antenna. I may have to add a front rego plate sticker because I've got the sticker on the back, and it really would just be adding it on the front bumper. Let's go with the front rego plate. I can do that. I'll put a star there because I haven't stuck it on yet, and that'll remind me. And I could fit a D-ring or 2 on the front with some holes. This gives us 8, and I could put an antenna on potentially. So we'll keep this in mind. That'll give us 8 or 9, so we'll call that 2. So what have we got? 8, 9, 10, 14, 18, 19. So let's say I've got 18 to 19 points depending on what I go with here. This is the Gelande II modified, and this version is the 11th of the 12th. Now there's a maximum of 24 points you can save off this sucker. 19's good. My previous comp truck gives me 16 points off. It's a really capable machine. Longer wheelbase, portals, unlockable rear diff, which is legal. It's quite a heavy body, and it's similar in weight to this body. I'm trying an experiment with this, and I've actually installed these brass wheels. They're quite heavy. 240 grams they say, 244 grams I measured, 243.6 or something from memory. The previous, well, these ones are about 100 grams. Reason being, I've got so much weight up top. I don't like adding extra weight, but you kind of need to keep things topside up. I've added a few other things here. Now, I pulled out all this stuff at the start of the video, so let me show you what I've replaced it all with. We're talking about weight, so let's look at that first. We've got these heavier wheels. I've got the trenches, as we talked about. I've just installed these Boom Racing axles front and rear, which I'm quite happy with. Steel cut versus cheap cast stuff. They also weigh another 60 grams or so. They're 280 front and 210 grams in the rear, I think. We've got the metal shafts replacing these spaghetti plastic ones, which are fine. They're good enough for the stock thing, because the unis are metal. So the only thing you're going to break is this bit. You used to actually break that bit, but you don't anymore. But I just thought I'd go safe. Now these ones aren't the same as those pretty little CVD ones you can buy, but I've had these for almost a decade in various forms. I've got a bunch of them. They're not that expensive and they're pretty strong. Now to fit this I had to flip the link. I did this last night. I had to move the panhard mount, I had to flick the link. This was previously behind the axle, but to make it all work with the panhard mount in its stock position and the steering in its stock position, I had to flip a few things. So that's what I've done, and I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, look at that steering angle. And it still rolls. Like, it still rolls at that steering angle. Just barely, but it does. Now, steering it is a 46 kilo brushless 8.4 volt, which means I've got a BEC running in there to power the servo, and that's fine. We're also running the Hobbywing Axe R2 system. It's the 1400 kV brushless. Again, if these hadn't broken yet, they probably would have. That's quite a beefcake system, and I've replaced even the stock pinion with a 14 tooth to slow it down. Sorry, to speed it up, because 1400 is pretty slow. We're going to pair it with a 12 volt so that I get my full servo power, and that will sit just in here. I've got these very old, they are RC4WD drive, they're steel, just to protect the car. Now you don't actually get any scale points for this, and being metal, it's largely going to detract from the performance, but it does give you that protection, which means I can slam it into the rocks a bit more. When the first time I wheeled this thing out, the car fell over on its side and it shattered the window surround and the cover popped out. So I wanted to get some protection on it, so that's why I've added this thing all on the top. It's not that much weight, it looks amazing, and it should give us the protection we need. Now there is a winch bumper coming. It's the RC4WD drive thing and the Mini Warn Xeon winch. I've gone branded just because I can. We're also using FlySky GT5. That's largely just so I can have a convenient and controllable winch switch. I will need to add a small ESC in the back here to control the winch when that's installed. And, oh yes, and oh! Hang on, we missed a scale point. Exhaust pipe. Oh wait, I ticked it without mentioning it. Exhaust pipe. I did actually install one. And that's right there. Now I'm thinking I might actually bend that and just have it poking out to the side, or possibly poking out there, so that I don't lose any of my departure angle, because it does actually steal a little bit of departure angle at the moment. It doesn't get in the way, but still thinking about that. Anyway, it's a single speed, and everything else is, I say everything else, there's not much else that's stock. We've kept the stock chassis, the stock length, bumpers haven't been moved. I should add, I did need to change the shock oil from 45 weight to 100k diff oil, because the pistons have such huge gaps in them. Look at the difference. I'll put this thing together and we're going to run it over my 6 problem course. If it can do any of my 6 problems, we're doing well. My current comp truck can do problem 1 and problem 5. So that's the benchmark, problem 1 and problem 5. Well, that's it for detail about this thing. We'll come back next episode and get this thing onto the 6 problems, and we'll see how it does. Throw me a like if you got something out of this, and I'll catch you again right here on RC-TNT for part 2. Thanks, guys.